shall not be infringed. From the nation's Second Amendment watchdog, anti-gunners, get ready for the pain. The misinformation is over because this is the blunt object. From Gun Owners of America, this is Lock and Load with Bill Frady. Bill Frady.
As we roll into the third hour on a Tuesday, this is Lock and Load. The number to get in, 1-800-313-9443. I will never have another hour like the one I'm going to have right now, ever. Because I bring something that is I bring somebody that is double-barreled and effective. Joining me from Connecticut Carry is the director of Connecticut Carry, Ed Peruta. Good morning, Ed.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
That
Ed,
was a good intro.
You like that? Did you like that? Now, Ed, I have nothing to fear from Ed because Ed is also a media guy as well, amongst the other hats that he wears. Aren't you retired?
Well, I don't think anybody ever retires.
Yeah, I think you're probably doing more than when you were working. No.
Yeah, when you retire, you have more things to do, including the honey-do list.
Right. So, but Ed is a media guy, and he knows exactly which bad words he can't say. So we can just go unbridled because I know he's staying in check too. Ed,
yeah, you're right.
You guys released a press release. Connecticut Carry released a press release yesterday, and both you and Mr. Burgess made some statements in that press release. And let's put this out there front there. Connecticut Carry is not advocating for any violence. Is that correct?
Absolutely, no violence.
And at the same time, you're calling this legislative regime they're trying to push, that they want to push, you're calling it everything but the kitchen sink in regards to the fact that it's not going to work and there's going to be a serious pushback occur if they do try to make it work.
Well, let me see if I can start out because I've never really done a radio interview or an internet broadcast or whatever.
We're both.
Let me see if I can get this in. Yes, I am a director of Connecticut Carry, and Connecticut Carry is a 501c4 nonpartisan grassroots nonprofit organization devoted to educating and protecting our rights in Connecticut. I'm very proud to serve as a director on Connecticut Carry. It's not as big as some other groups, but it really specializes in education and really the street-level problems that people are facing with firearms. So, having said that, I just wanted to get that in there.
That's what I like about Connecticut Carry is you're pretty plain in your language.
I can't. Is the S word one of the 7 words?
I believe it is.
Body. Okay, I can't say that.
You're talking about your 2-line statement that you put out there,
right? As far as do it or get off the pot.
Right. And do you want to? I've got it right here. You want me to read it for you verbatim?
Yeah, read it verbatim.
Well, I can't read it verbatim, but from Governor Malloy to Undersecretary Lawler to DESPP Commissioner Sherriro and Lieutenant Cook of the Firearms Unit, and including Lieutenant Paul Vance, the state needs to go to the bathroom or get off the pot.
Defecate or get off the pot.
There you go. The fact is the state does not have the
testicles. That's permissible.
There we go. To enforce these laws. The laws would not survive the public outcry and resistance that would occur. That coming from Connecticut Carry Director Ed Peruta. What is the... There's a lot of stuff coming out in the media and everything. I read aloud what would probably be considered a very inflammatory narrative that some former SWAT officer wrote about what could happen in Connecticut earlier in the show. What are your members? Where's the mindset of your members?
To be very honest, as a director, I don't have the regular communication with members that Rich Burgess has. I have a lot of input into Connecticut Carry, and I get a lot of information out of Connecticut Carry. But I need to clarify something.
Sure.
You scheduled me for 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And at 8:38 a.m. this morning, I presented myself to State Police Headquarters, which is like 15 miles, not even that, 8 miles south of where I reside.
Right.
And I had an opportunity to speak to Lieutenant Vance and a member from Legal Affairs.
Okay.
I wanted to have facts when I came on your program.
Okay.
I need to say, I've known Lieutenant Vance for 25 years. My brother's a retired state trooper. We know each other. We respect each other. And there's information out on the Internet regarding a letter dated January 2nd, 2014.
Right.
Starts out, Dear Sir / Madam, and it talks about what you have to do if you didn't register your firearms in time. So just to clear it up, a couple of letters were sent out, and those letters were retracted. That's what I was told in the lobby of State Police Headquarters this morning, because I told them, I got to get out of here. I got an appointment at 10 o'clock. And I've been told that of the 50,000 applications to declare possession of assault weapons and large-capacity magazines, only 11,000 of those 50,000 have been processed so far. So there's still boxes of documents that have to be entered into the computer.
Right.
And there lies the problem. I, because of my media background, do not like to say anything unless I have the evidence in my back pocket to back it up. Because my business is passing information to somebody like you, the facts that I have, and then you have to confirm them through another source before they're broadcast out to the public.
Well, except in this particular case when we're talking live.
So I did go down there today. I want to tell your viewers how that statement in the Connecticut Carry press release came about.
Well, we got 2 minutes before the break, so
I can do it in 2 minutes.
Go.
Friday night, I was at a Northwest Connecticut sportsman's banquet that was heavily attended, and there was a lobbyist, firearms lobbyist, and he came up to me and he said, Ed, what do you think about the talk at the Capitol to implement and extend a amnesty period for the people who didn't register their firearms at the same time, in the right time? And I said, absolutely not. And his jaw dropped. And I said, no, let the legislature live with what they did, because it's either no amnesty and arrest them or totally repeal the 2003 legislation, and they only have till May 7th to do it in this legislative session. So that's how I came up with that.
Do you think there's a sense of regret amongst law enforcement and some of these politicians for what they've done? I mean, I've read that some of the Republicans that voted for this are absolutely stymied that they passed a law and there's some people that don't want to follow it. I mean, are they that disconnected?
You want me to answer that, or do we have time, or you want me to do it after the break? Because
do it after the break. Think about it. Now, one thing I do want to point out, one thing about Ed Peruta. Now, you, on a regular basis, you work for a lawyer that we're going to have on the show, and you actually do a lot of work regarding firearms defense, right?
That's correct.
So this is
in other words, being a legal investigator for Attorney Rachel Baird in Connecticut, who's been called in the press as a prominent firearms attorney, I get to see a cross-section of a lot of different situations, and we get to see what's common, what's becoming common actions by law enforcement.
Which makes you it gives you a very unique perspective. So when Ed sits down at this card game, he brings a bunch of decks of cards. You hang on, Ed, if you will, through the break. We'll be right back on a Tuesday. This is Lock and Load.
I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans.
Now, more pounding from the blunt object.
And welcome back on a Tuesday. This is Lock and Load. The number to get in, 1-800-313-9443. My guest this hour, a uniquely qualified individual to do the things that he has done. And, this is just what we know about. There's other stuff I'm sure I don't know about that he hasn't told me about yet. But anyway, I'm joined by Ed Peruta from Connecticut Carry. I had asked you before the break, Ed, is there a sense of regret or bewilderment on the part of government and law enforcement for this passing, for them, things they're saying in regards to it? What is the general sense you get from that?
Well, I think there is regret on the part of some people. I think that there's fear in the hearts of some people. And I think that there is actually an anger element out in law enforcement, because I know police officers in Connecticut who support Second Amendment rights.
Lieutenant
my
Vance.
Sources, and this is unconfirmed, this is from several different people,
right,
have told me that there are state legislators in the state of Connecticut that are asking for police protection.
Yeah.
Now, how true is that? We're never going to find out. But I just, mark my words, these legal and legislative fights will not end anytime in the near future. Because there's those people living amongst us who truly believe that disarming all American citizens is the only way for everyone to get along without fear. And they're wrong.
When you say that, are you saying that that's the only way they believe gun violence goes away, or?
Here's what I said. I was a panelist on public television, and I told them it was too soon after Newtown. It was not a long enough program to properly address the issues. And here's what I said. Newtown, Aurora, Clackamas, Washington, the McDonald's, these are all very tragic, evil things that happen in society. But evil doesn't have an address. It doesn't drive a car down a road. It can appear any place it wants. And what I said was this. Newtown in the state of Connecticut was a horrific tsunami wave. The biggest tsunami that the country had seen in a long time, and it had been perpetrated against small children. Instead of trying to find out what happened, solve the problem, and address the real issues, the Connecticut state legislature pulled out their political surfboards, and said, surf's up. Let's jump on this wave and ride it as far as we can and get everything we want. I don't think politicians should ride tragic tsunamis. We still have not addressed care for the mentally ill. We're not doing it. And I find myself saying, wait a minute, I believe in the country. I believe in the oaths that I've taken as a Cub Scout, a Boy Scout, a Marine, a police officer. I never gave those up. But I'm starting to question, what the hell does it mean to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic? I thought it was only going to be foreign. I didn't realize it was going to be domestic as much as it is now.
Let's talk about what precipitated the tremor now. Before Newtown, what did the typical gun buyer in Connecticut have to go through to purchase and obtain a weapon?
Well, long guns were were unregulated, and that included your ARs, your AKs, semi-automatic rifles. It was unregulated. You could buy them. I think you had to declare them every year, but you could buy them, and you didn't really need a lot of paperwork. You had your 14-day wait. To buy a handgun, you had to have either a state-issued eligibility certificate, which was simply pass the background check, have no state or federal disqualifiers, and you got it. Or you could apply for a permit to carry, and the only thing that did was apply what's called the suitability standard. In other words, does the issuing authority find you to be a suitable person? And you could have a whole bunch of different reasons why they find you unsuitable. But it was I could live with that. But now, you can't buy ammunition without a number, a piece of paper. You can't buy a handgun. You can't buy a log gun. You can't do anything in this state without going through the process of acquiring government approval. And what it does is it begins to build a database of every box of ammunition or firearm purchased from this day forward, the government's going to know about. And that's the registry.
Now, with the now, while you say you can live with that, it's not exactly the way it is in Arizona as far as obtaining a gun now, is it? I mean, they had a few checks and balances in place that some states don't have. Was that carry permit, for example, did you have to provide compelling need?
No.
No. Just had to meet a suitability.
There you go, Bill.
Okay. All right. Now, of all of these things that they put in place, would any one of them, or a combination of what we've got right now, would any one of these things, all of these things combined, would they have stopped Adam Lanza?
The answer is no, and I'd like to ask you and every viewer or every listener to this program a favor.
Sure.
I do not say his name.
He who shall be not. Okay, I got you. All right.
I don't want to give that individual any acknowledgement by name in my lifetime.
Roger that.
Now, I don't care if other people do, but I just tell people I'll talk about the incident, I'll talk about the individual as an individual, but I do not use that name in conversation. I've out of my vocabulary.
Roger that. Prior to all of this happening, how often did Connecticut citizens use guns in self-defense?
Bill, the answer to your other question is no. Nothing that was done in the Connecticut State Legislature would have prevented that individual from doing what he did to his mother, taking firearms and doing what he did to kids in school.
Right.
Now,
go ahead.
No. You were starting another question. I realized.
Well, I was just asking how often did Connecticut citizens use guns in self-defense?
I know of one instance where a gentleman was sitting on a park bench in the lower part of Connecticut. I think it was New Haven, West Haven, eating his lunch. A guy came up to him and went to rob him, I think, with a knife. And the guy pulled out the gun and shot and killed the guy. You know, and I guess he picked the wrong guy to go up to in the park, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, the incidents, we're coming up on the next break. Tell everybody, I tell you what, one of the reasons you guys want them to enforce the law is because you want to fight them in court, right? Tell everybody how they can help out Connecticut Carry.
Well, I think that an organization, and Connecticut Carry is financially transparent, there should be a huge legal defense fund that anyone who gets arrested for something like this should at least have the basic filing fees, costs, or an initial consultation fee with a criminal defense attorney paid for by the fund. But until you have the fund, you can't make the offer or evaluate who to give it to.
I talked with Ed for a while last night on the phone, and I knew this was going to be a special day for me. And I love the bluntness. You hang on. You just hang on. We'll be back after this. Coming up next, more of Ed Peruta on a Tuesday. This is Lock and Load.
Moving on to a different place. People hide, but I see the face. No one that's full of hate.
Hey, gun grabbers, do you feel the pain?
And welcome back on a Tuesday. This is Lock and Load. The number to get in, 1-800-313-9443. Very unique guest I have today. We'll get to the in the next segment, we're going to talk about something else. But right now, I'm talking to Ed Peruta from Connecticut Carry about what's happening in Connecticut. Looking at the tea leaves, Ed, where do you think this goes? I mean, you've already said this is going to take a while to hash this out, but where do you think this goes?
I think, and I don't want people to listen to this literally. I think that there is a powder keg of political frustration in the state of Connecticut right now. But I need to say something. You were closing out going into the break. I used to do programs on public and leased access cable.
Yes, sir.
And I had an opening to my show.
Okay.
To try and remember it verbatim. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the people's perspective. Call your mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, neighbors, and friends. This is a show like you've never seen or heard before, and you're going to hear topics that are not making the mainstream news. And, you know, I went on and I said, if controversy causes conversations that result in solutions, then I want to be as controversial as possible. And I think that there is currently a controversy taking place in the state of Connecticut that is not properly being represented in the mainstream brick-and-mortar media.
Okay.
Public television, the radio stations, the mainstream TV stations are not giving this topic enough time to have people present what's going on. I mean, I'm talking to you. You give me an hour.
Right.
You know, or it doesn't happen mainstream right here in the shadow of Lexington. It's not happening. And I want to thank you and all your listeners.
Well, I appreciate that. I think you know, we saw this dynamic after Newtown when they were considering legislation on the federal level, where we saw the Department of Justice statistics and the Pew Research Center at the same time come out and say violent crime and gun crime is down 49% across the board over the last 20 years. And at the same time, we saw a poll that they took where 56% of America thought that it was on the rise. And I look at those 56% and I say those are the low-info voters that only get their news off the magic box. Do you think that that is why that's happening in Connecticut? Absolutely. And I've written, published on websites, put it on my website, and I've said, look, every time the media reports a firearm incident where someone is assaulted with either a firearm being displayed or discharged, they never sit there and say, convenience store, unarmed convenience store owner was shot. You know, they always talk about the man who was armed, the criminal. Right. But they don't say the victim was unarmed. Right. Now, I'll tell you a true story. Connecticut is an open or concealed carry state. And if it's summertime, I'm carrying openly. If it's wintertime, I may have a coat on. I carry a Colt Commander 45 caliber, and I walked into an electronics store in Newington, Connecticut, and when I was doing my business, the lady said to me, sir, that is very intimidating. And I used to say to people, well, ma'am, don't worry, I have a permit to carry. I'm not here to cause you any harm. But on that day, I changed. On that day, Bill, I changed. And I said, ma'am, normally I would just say I have a permit, but let me explain something to you. I carry this firearm on my hip openly because I want it to be intimidating. I want someone who's thinking of doing me harm to see it on my hip and walk away. I want somebody to know that I have a firearm and I'm prepared to defend myself with it. Now, I also, just to let you know, I have a couple of places down in Florida. And my son's down there in one of the houses, and I had a little gun and I had my gun. And my son says, I like the little one. And I said, Michael, I'm an NRA instructor. I'm a combat experienced Marine back in the late 60s.
I said, let me explain something to you. 90% of self-defense is the fact that the other guy knows what you have in your hand. I said, they see it. I said, I don't want him to think it's a cigarette lighter. I don't want him to think it's a cell phone. I don't want him to think it's whatever. I said, I want him to look in my hand and say, holy, I can't say that. I said, I want the guy to know exactly what I have in my hand. And my son got it. Now, do I want to carry a howitzer with me? No. Do I want to flaunt a gun? No. But I want to protect myself and my family at all times. Do I secure my firearm when my grandchildren are in the house? Absolutely. Do I keep it unloaded and properly secured? Absolutely. Out of reach, they can't get it. But when I'm out on my own and I'm going into a bad neighborhood to shoot a news event, or I'm remaining in an area where there's been a news event and the area isn't La Jolla, California, or Darien, Connecticut, I want to have protection against anything that approaches me. What's going to happen in Connecticut, Bill? I don't know. But I can tell you the state police cannot sit on these known individuals who are, quote-unquote, now felons without doing anything.
Now, when you say the known individuals, are we referring to the ones that tried to register that they got turned back? Are those the known felons?
Let me explain to you. I mean, there was a form, and it was called I believe it was called the Declaration of Possession, Certificate of Possession.
Right.
You had to fill out a form in writing saying, I have one of the firearms that you've identified. Then the person signed it. It was notarized, and they were required to put a thumbprint on it.
Right.
Talk about giving somebody information to use against you. So, in essence, people gave up their Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination in an attempt to register their firearms. They didn't get it in time. You know, people do it with their taxes all the time. And, you know, but they are, if you read 13-3 or 13-20, the legislation that went through last year, they are now felons. And I've had people criticize Rich Burgess and I, you know, not a lot, but criticize saying, well, you now advocate arresting people? And here's my logic, and it may offend some of your viewers or listeners. General Eisenhower knew that there was going to be the first wave of troops landing on the sands of Normandy.
Right.
He knew that there were going to be young Americans at the door when it dropped. He knew that there were going to be substantial casualties. He wrote the infamous "if we don't, if we do" letters, okay?
Right.
I don't want to see any honest, law-abiding resident of the state of Connecticut arrested. But I have to say, I don't want to see anybody have to comply with destroy the gun, get the gun out of state, turn it over to law enforcement or whatever. I'd rather get arrested.
Fair enough.
Me. That's me.
I got you. We're coming up on the last break. When we come back, we're going to talk as much as you can, because I understand it.
Give you more time to talk.
Huh? We can do this again, Ed. This doesn't have to be your one and only time. You know what I'm saying?
Listen,
this is an evolving thing. Well, go. We got probably 40 seconds. Go.
www.ctcarry.com. It is, in my opinion, the best source of information for what's going on in the state of Connecticut. And I work for attorney Rachel M. Baird, B-A-I-R-D. To anybody in Connecticut who gets jammed up, she's the go-to girl.
Yeah, I think we've recognized her at Gun Owners of America for her work. So, anyway, you hold on one more time. When we come back, we're going to talk about San Diego County as much as you possibly could. I know we can. I know that there's certain things he cannot divulge for, and I don't even want to know why. But we're going to talk about what we can. We'll be right back. Last time I give it back to RBN on a Tuesday. This is Lock and Load.
Bill Frady, bald and dangerous.
All right, as we get ready to go away, we're going to end this one with, it's a bang, no matter how we articulate it here, because of the result. The result is the bang. It's the big bang. My guest this hour, Ed Peruta from Connecticut Carry, but he's also the Ed Peruta from the recent Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision in California. Where now, well, you satisfied one wish in San Diego County, didn't you, Ed? Because, Sheriff Gore said, I really would like to give out these concealed carry permits, but the law won't let me.
All right, let me start because we how much time have we got left?
We got 10. We got 9 minutes.
Okay. Without having been the legal investigator for Attorney Rachel M. Baird in Connecticut, I would not have had the opportunity to immerse myself in Second Amendment law and issues. In 2008, I went to San Diego and I wanted media credentials from the police department and a pistol permit from the sheriff's department. And that's where it all began. Based on my being with Rachel, I was smart enough to read the tea leaves, and I put my tape recorder up on the counter during the entire interview with San Diego Sheriff's Department. But let's get to the decision. I mean, leading up to it is a rather long story that you and I can talk about with your listeners some other time.
Right.
February 13th, I'm taking a nap. Somebody walks in and hands me a cell phone and says, something's going on someplace. Your phone is ringing off the hook. And it was the lawyers in California trying to give me heads up that the Ninth had made their decision. I would like to personally thank Attorney Paul Newhart in San Diego for believing in me and taking my check. I'd like to thank the law firm of Michelle and Associates, Chuck Michelle, Sean Brady, and Clint Montfort. I'd like to thank Paul Clement. I'd like to thank the NRA and the NRA ILA. I'd like to thank the thousands of people who have assisted me in this journey. But here's my opinion. Sheriff Gore realizes that this is an election year. Sheriff Gore realizes that, and I'm sure he's looking at the demographics of the applications that have come in, and he sees where they live, what they do for a living, probably has some idea of whether they're at the upper echelon of wealth or at the bottom. I'm sure that there's not a lot of gangbangers putting in their applications. And I don't think that Sheriff Gore can ever turn back the clock of what has happened. Now, the sheriff in Orange County has loosened up and agreed to accept self-defense. It's my understanding that Ventura County is now doing likewise. Los Angeles County is going to hold out forever. San Francisco is probably going to hold out forever. But I don't think you can take it back, because when they see the number of applications coming in and who they're coming in from, it's opening their eyes. And it is a tidal wave of applications in California, and they haven't even seen the crest of the wave yet. So,
I think the forecast they're saying as far as concealed permit holders there is 1.4 million.
Well, let me give you some facts, because if you go out to the U.S. Census site, which I've done, Connecticut has, and I'm going to give you rough numbers because they don't have it in front of me. 4,800 square miles. San Diego County is 4,200 square miles. There's 3.8 million people in Connecticut, and I think there's 3.5 million or something like that in San Diego. There's, I want to say, 238 people per square mile in San Diego, or 238 people per square mile in Connecticut, 236 people per square mile in San Diego. Now, here's where it really, I mean, that's so close, it's almost non-existent. Here's where the difference is. In the state of Connecticut, there are 200,000 permits to carry pistols and revolvers. In San Diego County, there's 2,700. And of the 2,700, I understand that only 800 of them are private individuals. The rest are judges, lawyers, prosecutors, etc. So you stop and think about the numbers. Does that mean there's 197,000 people that are going to apply for permits in San Diego alone? There's 58 counties in California. Isn't it remarkable that the Sheriff's Association backed away from the Chiefs Association in filing to get intervener status with the Ninth Circuit? But sheriffs are elected. Usually municipal chiefs are appointed. You know, so I mean, there's a lot going on here, Bill.
Yeah, there is. And do you think Kamala Harris, the best-looking Attorney General in the United States, do you think the Ninth Circuit's going to listen to her?
You know, I don't like flipping a coin.
Yeah.
I've had enough coin flipping in my life to be done with it. You know, I will tell you this. I spent my 19th birthday on a landing barge between Fubai and Da Nang and never thought I would see my 20th birthday just before Tet, like 2 weeks before Tet, January 21st, 1968. I never thought I'd see my 20th birthday, let alone being 65, looking in the mirror and saying, who's that old guy? But I want to give a shout-out, okay, to Sheriff Gore. And I hope that your listeners pass this podcast around to everybody they can. I think that Sheriff Gore did the right thing by not going further. I think that he's always had the discretion to accept self-defense as good cause. And I think that if he's overwhelmed with applications and sees the demand, he may stay that way regardless of what the Ninth says. And I think that every elected sheriff in California should take heed of what's happening here. The bell has been rung, Bill.
Yeah. That's the thing that I don't hear anybody else talking about with the response that's going to come to these sheriffs that are going this way. Even if they listen to Kamala Harris, they're likely to continue doing business.
It's my understanding, based on the transcripts that I've had access to, that the court was told, when asked, that the Attorney General was asked to get involved in this case repeatedly by both sides and refused, saying, you're on your own. Because maybe she didn't expect this decision out of the Ninth. I don't think a lot of people did. But I need to just, because I know we're going to be cutting here pretty close to the end. I think that I would like to do this more often, not every week, maybe once a month, maybe once every other month, maybe every 6 weeks. But I also think that Attorney Rachel Baird here in Connecticut, because she deals with so many issues, we begin to see the common issues that are going on. And information is power, and you're providing it to your listeners.
I appreciate that. One more time, tell everybody about where they can go for Connecticut Carry, and read some of the other blunt statements you may have made.
No, I'm not. No, www.ctgunrights.com. It is a 501c4 whatever nonprofit organization. And Richard Burgess, it was his concept. He asked me to go on board with him, and I said absolutely. And we are dedicated to educating people and protecting people's rights, particularly with firearms, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and Second Amendment. I work for Attorney Rachel M. Baird in Torrington, Connecticut. If you live in Connecticut and you have a problem, I I don't want to be soliciting for her, but sometimes you just have to know who to call, who to ask, and that's where I am most of the time. So,
well, I'll be going after Miss Baird, and I reserve the right to come back to you as the situation evolves, or Mr. Burgess, or whoever I can get from your group to come on board. That way, we can stay in the loop.
Connecticut Carry puts out a lot of press releases frequently that give people insights of what's going on.
Yeah, but those are so much less entertaining than you are, Ed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I can get really off the wall sometimes.
Thanks for taking the time to join me very much. Thank you very much. Stay safe. All right, folks, that is it. Remember, this has never been about gun control, ever. It's always been, it's always going to be about total control. On a Tuesday, this has been Lock and Load.